This is Toasted with Revolution News and Information. This is Monday night with Dave and Ed. The disclaimers. It's currently 5:07 p.m. Please excuse the late start, everyone. It was on my end. I'm going to pass the floor right on over to Dave and Ed.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We appreciate those who are with us tonight and those who are going to join us and those who listen to the show afterwards. So we have some really nice topics tonight. One, we're going to really get into the tax issue again and some structure so people can comprehend how these men and women are freaking out about, because people are, we the people are waking up in the system so much that, people are really getting this. They're comprehending the truth. And this is the point that, without knowing the truth, it has to be all based on fact. It cannot be based on hearsay. Hearsay is like a district attorney. District attorneys are hearsay witnesses. District attorneys cannot even be in the courtroom. They cannot be representing you. Okay? They can only represent the birth certificate bond. And not only that, when an attorney goes to court, they have to bring your paperwork and your filing into court. Okay, so they have to bring that filing into court, and that's called, if you filed yourself as a lawful and bloodline American, or if you did it with as a legal citizen, so then they have to represent what you brought in, what you wrote, what your structure is in court. That's the way it really works. That's the way how it has to be. Oh, I don't know, they wrote it. Like Dave says, they wrote it, we just preach it. So, this is the bottom line that comes out with all this stuff. If you don't start practicing this and paying attention, of the future, you're not going to have a future, neither are your kids. Right now I'm posting stuff on the recall of Cape Brown is starting to move. I will have the recall here filed here pretty soon because I'm going to be doing that. That's going to be wonderful when I get that filed, because I got news media actually waiting for it across the state. They all pretty much know me, so it's nothing new for me to go do stuff like this or speak up or, go after public servants. And that's the one thing that we need to start doing. All of us need to start doing is going after elected and public servants, making sure that they're honorable for their position of employment. Now, I can't remember the governor's name, and what the hell state is that? I was just watching a video. They went after him to impeach him, and not only to impeach him on charges, and he's not going to resign, he's going to sit there and fight it. These guys, they think that they have superior power when they're in office. They don't have to go by the laws. They don't have to go by administrative rules. They consider themselves gods. Okay? And that's the one thing. These people are not gods. They don't have rights. They have 100% privileges, and it's up to us to make sure they get it. And that's the one thing I'm getting, like I said, when I'm filing with Cape Brown, I found the law that everybody's going to love this one, and the law beside that, the federal law says, and let me go back over here because I know I just posted the thing. It says you're going to love this one. Oh, wait a minute, let me get down here. Federal Constitution makes a careful distinction between natural-born citizens and citizens of the United States. Compare 2.1.5 with Section 1 of the so-called 14th Amendment, one of the unconstitutional sovereignty by natural born. That means being born on this soil, not in another country. Who endows the Creator. Oh, I love the way they do that, the Creator instead of God. This is congressional. With a certain unalienable rights, the other been granted and revoked privileges of the United States citizenship. Endowed by Congress of the United States. One is a citizen, the other is a subject. One is a sovereign, and the other one is subordinate. One is a citizen of our Constitution Republic. The other is a citizen of legislative democracy of the federal government. I think that's pretty clear. So that is going into the filing with Kate Brown when I do the recall on her. So this way, we don't need, they cannot try to come up with a conflict of interest. You know, I want to make sure they have no rights to come up with a conflict, that they can go after it. I'm putting that in because, and I got the other filing with the state of Oregon. State of Oregon even says that she has to be born in the United States, and she was born in Spain. Now, I heard tale that it was plausible that maybe her parents were in the, Air Force, and so she was born in Spain. But no, some of the research I've done, her family is from Spain. She's not even from here. So, and I did have a landmark case that I got called last night on. Now, come on, computer. And this is a landmark case with Carolyn Rousseau. I can't even say the name, but it's Rousseau case. This is on the website of Recall Kate Brown, Recall Governor Kate Brown, and this is a federal court system that she was sued for over $100 million and $350 million, and they prevailed. So, so when I file this, we're going to go after her, and we're going to go after putting her in jail for treason, racketeering, extortion, and especially for being a Democrat. You know, making laws that are destroying our freedom, our rights, and turning us into privilege to men and women. We have rights. We don't have privileges. And those who have privileges are immigration, you know. I mean, hey, we got to support you too, as long as you came in lawfully, legally to lawfully, because otherwise, if you didn't come in that way, you don't got no support. We don't want you in our country. There is no forgiveness, period. There's no forgiveness. You come in and you do that type of stuff, there is no immunity, and that's by federal law. I mean, the so-called, what do they call those presidents, do administrative rules? Those administrative rules are congressional administration rules. They are not laws. So there is no immunity at all for illegals. And there are federal laws on that, and I've posted them up before. So we'll get them up, and because I'm going to be putting that into the recall on Kate Brown. I've got some other stuff on the letter I've been putting out to the media. Starting the recall letter out there and posting it on the media. And then also, too, I have John Kitzhopper letter on that Facebook wall as well. And so that is on property taxes. So you can read it, look at it, do what you want to do to it. You can use it. It's up to you. Get out of property taxes. I'm going to be having a new one up that me, Dave, and Michelle put together, so we're going to have another one that we're going to be putting up here pretty soon. So this way people can see the truth, and it's up to you, because under Title V, if you pay your income taxes, that's a federal crime. So, you know, if you're lawful, bloodline American, the law, and I've got the law too that I just pulled up and found, and it's on Kate's site, that all elected and public employees, registered church members, and immigration are mandated to pay taxes. All right, and the public employees are definitely on that structure as well, because they get a check, you know, phony money, but that's how we get around today. So we can't get all upset about it. But the other point is that they get a paycheck, and that goes to the structure of March 9th, 1933 Bankruptcy Act, because prior to that, government employees, state and government, city, county employees were used to pay in gold and silver. They didn't have paper. Even when they had paper money in the late 1800s, they still got paid in gold and silver. So, you know, it is putting it back into place. That's going to take a lot for people to deal with and to comprehend when that one happens. But, you know, everybody keeps going, well, the dollar's going to fall out tomorrow. They're going to close this down. And people, you have to realize, if they shut things down tomorrow, how are you going to exist? How is the bank going to exist? How is elected employee servants going to exist? So, you know, people don't think when they speak out on these things that they're going to shut this down, and so this is going to be done, and that's going to be done. You know, it's like you have to step back. with a conscience of some reality here and know and figure out, because if they do certain things and shut it down, they lose too, and they know that we're going to be on their doorstep, so they're not going to do that, So, but the other point too, me and Dave have discussed that when people are talking, we're going to start probably muting the board, so that way until the man or woman is finished speaking, then that way once they're done finished speaking, then we'll open up the board to the next speaker. So this way we don't have any, people speaking over one another. Because sometimes I get bad about that myself, and I know that, and Dave's caught me more than once. So, all right, Dave, you won that argument, so we have to go by it. So, not arguing with you. You caught me. I nailed it, so that's just the way it works. So, anyhow, that's what I just want to let people know that we'll start muting the board if we get people start to talk over each other until the next person gets the floor passed to them. So, and that's what has to be done. We have to get the board passed to one another. And the other point that I like to bring out to people that I have on the recall, and I'll put it on the other one I should, is ALEC. And look at ALEC, A-L-E-C. Okay, this is a corporation of lobbyists and senators and House of Representatives. All right, they write bills. They're a nonprofit agency, and they write bills. Okay, and this is how they control. It's been, and then people don't get it. That's one thing. People say they want their freedom, they want their livelihood, they want this. Well, the point is, if you want it, prove you want it. That means, number one, stand up for it, file your paperwork, do it, because if you don't file your paperwork and claim your standing, you have no standing. It's that simple. So Dave's got a few topics that he wants to hit with Michelle, and so we'll be hitting that in a few minutes. But like I said, I will have the recall getting started to file. They're going to fight with me because they're going to want me to get a bank account for a recall, and I'm not going to get a bank account because why should I get a bank account? And they're going to tell me, well, you have to have a bank account for a recall. No, what I'm going to do in the recall is I'm going to, if people would like to donate, they call me up, let me know what paper, newspaper, they donated the money to. Okay, so the money gets donated to the newspaper, and then we'll run the ads. Okay, this way the people are paying for this. Okay, I don't have the money myself. That's a fact. I've had numerous money were stolen from my home over the years. So, we've got to do this together, and everybody's going to have to fight and stand together on this. Okay, and then I want to get into the other point was, hang on a second, what was the other one? I just had it here. And I'm posting this up on Dave's wall and my walls too. And this is on filing income tax, violates the Fifth Amendment. I brought it up earlier. Here's your law. Okay, and the thing is that, you have to rescind your contract with them. Once you rescind your contract, you're out of a contract with them. They can't come after you, okay? Or just don't pay it, and then they come after you. Just file on them for theft and coercion. It's just that simple. It's up for us to start sitting there and making these things happen, these things to be real with our elected and public employees, because if we keep giving these sweetheart nice deals, we lose, the kids lose, everybody loses. So, so we can't afford that. This country has already had a beating from, I don't know, and the last name was Obama, and everybody's panicking and whining and crying because, oh my God, we're shipping out illegals. Well, illegals should be shipped out. They don't have a right in this country. We don't have the food to feed them. 60% of the food in the grocery store is not even food. So that is the one thing. You have to look at this and realize what is food, what's not food, what are we feeding ourselves, what are we doing to our children, what are we doing to our neighbors, the structures around us. So anyhow, I would like to thank everybody for joining us. We do appreciate your time. And also, too, do not be bashful if you would like to speak up. We're going to want to get this thing so we start working in a presentable order, in a sense. So don't be bashful to speak up. You got a question, ask, or if you got information that one of us don't know, or somebody else on the show don't know, and you want to share something, please share. Do not be bashful. Because if we don't work with each other, we're not having a future. And that's the whole point. We have elected and public servants, and please, when you're talking to your friends and your neighbors or anybody, don't call the government. Call them and say you have elected and public servants. If you start getting that through people's head, and people start saying elected and public servants instead of, oh, we have, government. The federal government is 100% the British government. We know that. That's a fact. That's a reality. Okay, so, but the thing is we have servants. And so we have a contract with them for their employment, or else they're unemployable. And that's what Trump is doing right now. People are freaking out. I mean, just signed a bill so teachers can teach school the way they want to. Get rid of the Common Core mind control of Nazi Germany. If you ever read Common Core, yeah, and you wonder why that came from Bush family, the Nazi Germany family. Oh, that's a good point right there when you think about it. So remember, don't forget the Bush family funded the German war. And that's why President Bush was convicted of treason, which bothers me, because I look at it, if you're convicted of treason, they should have hung him, But anyhow, I'm going to be passing the floor over to Dave, and we do appreciate your time, and we do appreciate you joining us. And so, Dave, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ed. That sounds like a horse of a different color.
Oh, man, you don't know how I had to live with that one growing up in school.
Oh, it was a wonderful day here until just recently, and it just started to rain. But other than that, it's been a really, really good day here. Tonight, I'd like to welcome everyone to the show. And as Ed has already said, we're going to make some changes so that you, the listener, can come on board. And please say the word question, and we will give you the floor, and we'll mute everybody out. And you can say your piece, and when you're done, you say, I yield. And then we can come back in on the board and take care of the question if we have the answers for you. If not, we'll see if somebody else on the call does. Well, today I received my letter from the IRS on my form that I submitted, the 211 form, and the gentleman informed me that the information, the primary decision is to reject my application.
What was your application for?
Excuse me?
What was the application for?
That 211 form.
And what's the purpose of that?
That would be to get my money back that was unlawfully taken from me. But they told me that I didn't have the Form 211 list the taxpayer and whistleblower the same individual. And what's wrong with that? Michelle got one too, but hers is worded a little different. But this form lets the taxpayer and whistleblower the same individual. Well, that's because I am the same individual. Every line is properly filled out, and what they're trying to do, it says preliminary rejection letter. So if I'm being rejected, I'd like to know under what law I'm being rejected. But they don't claim a law here. They just say it is IRS Code Section 7623B. Now, in 2005, when I first got into it with the IRS, I used this section of the code and pointed out the errors of the way. Well, guess what? In 2006, the IRS changed the code to protect themselves. And we can prove it because I have the wording before and the wording after. A year after they started their crap with me, they changed the code to agree with me. Now, isn't that sweet? I'm grandfathered in on the law change because I've already used it. And that's something people don't realize either, is the fact that if you use a law, statute, whatever, and then they change it, oh, I'm sorry, but I'm grandfathered in on the change.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind when you're going into court. Then Michelle and I looked at who autographed. Actually, nobody autographed it. This is just a typewritten name on here. In fact, they're all typewritten names. This Joseph Herb is a program manager at the whistleblower's office. Now, what authority does a program manager have in a whistleblower's form? This guy hasn't got any authority to reject anything. He's a programmer. Fraud number 2. My name, the all caps name. And then they address me in the upper lower case as Dear Davidlee Buess. That's identity theft. They're doing the same crap we just got through accusing them of under 14. Let me see what the form number was on that one.
You looking for the one that's on the top of the form, Dave?
Yeah, 14 something.
The phone number?
No. The form.
Oh, the claim number?
The form number, yeah. 14039. Identity theft. I submitted to the IRS 30-some pages of evidence along with this Form 211. And I don't know, I think personally we gave them too much information because it blew their mind. But when they tell me I didn't fill it out correctly, Michelle and I read each other's letter to each other, and we're dead on. So we're trying to figure out how we're going to nail this little turkey. So tomorrow she and I are going to get together, and we're going to go over our plan, and then we're going to call the boys, and we're going to call him out.
Explain to them, Dave. Explain to them what we discovered regarding the code. You know, the section, the 7623B. Explain to them what it meant, what we discovered.
Yeah, well, that's what I was telling them. It protects them so they don't have to pay anything. Basically, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah,
go ahead.
It boils down to how they're supposed to be paying our funds is what it comes down to.
Yeah.
which is zilch.
The interesting part of it all is that what Michelle and I are looking for in this Form 211 actually isn't in any of the code that they provided to us. It's actually under what's the one you told me to look up?
On the when I was looking up the statutes, you mean?
The one you sent me on the computer, and I haven't had a chance to look at it yet.
Yeah, corporate liquidations.
Yeah.
Under 26 CFR 1.331-1. It's on Facebook. If anybody wants to look up, go to Ed's Facebook on their wall and David's. It's on their wall on Facebook.
So what it basically boils down to is that every time Michelle and I get into the code under a different section, it reveals another falsehood that they're trying to con you out of, or into, I should say. And it exposes how they're doing it even. So we've had a ball today just going over IRS code. There is no law that requires you to pay it. And what they're trying to do is convince you that there is. And we've already got the documents, the 31 pages of documentation I filed with this 211 form, points out all the rulings of the United States Supreme Court that are not found in the code, the fact that Congress can't define income, the fact that if Congress can't define income, where are they getting the terminology for an individual income tax? Can you see the fraud in the inducement equal intentional fraud equal criminal fraud? That's what you have to look for. When you're dealing with the IRS, you better look up everything they say on your letter, because that's how you're going to nail them, and that's how Michelle and I are going to nail this guy, plus file criminal charges against him, because we've already got half our case written.
Yeah, that's true.
Anyway,
I found some. I found
the other thing I wanted to bring out was Kashua, Wesley Glenn Dick's case. I wrote a letter to, and I posted it on our websites. Wrote a letter to the Attorney General's office asking for the form to file treason against a judge. Also sent it to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the President of the United States. Wesley said he thought he should file against the judge and didn't know how to do it and all that. I said, well, it's very simple, Wesley. You get the right form, you file treason against him because he failed to honor your treaty. And you made a claim, this is my treaty of 18, I forgot the year, but anyway, the Constitution says this is the supreme law of the land and treaties written, and any judge who doesn't abide by the treaty commits an act of treason and disqualifies himself. So you look at the 16th American jurisprudence, any law written in violation of this Constitution is though it was never written, no one's obligated to obey it. We pretty much got this judge to where he's going to spend a lifetime in jail and or executed, because we are not any longer going to put up with judges who do not want to honor treaties. And you cannot make a law or a statute or a treaty in violation of another treaty. How stupid is Congress and the President to do that?
Well, I agree with you there. Good
so
point.
We have to comprehend the fact that the early treaties were all with the Native Americans. And the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, every time we declare war, are we not breaking a treaty? You bet your sweet bippy we are, because we told the Native American Indians that, what? This is a peace treaty. We can't declare war anymore. So every act of war that this nation does and the corporation does is an act of war against the Indians. Now, doesn't that put a nickel in your plate?
It sure does.
So the other thing that I posted on our Facebook sites was this letter, page 400, Congressional Record House, December 13th, 1932, whereby it proves the international bankers forced the world into bankruptcy to force the Federal Reserve System nation or worldwide. And I don't think they were expecting us to do that. But, people, fraud's fraud. And basically, we can go all the way back now to the beginning of this country when Lincoln was president, when the secession happened. The secession actually started. I was digging into this today. The secession of the southern states began in December of 1860 when Buchanan was president. And that's why he was asking the Attorney General, whose jurisdiction it fell under, to determine what secession was about and all that. And Buchanan told him it's a matter for Congress, not the president. And why would that be? Because, the president does not have legislative ability. It's not granted to him in the Constitution. So the president has no legislative authority whatsoever. Why would we have a check and balance system if the president could write the legislation and veto the legislation? Duh. Are we stupid? That's why Congress, House and Senate, are the legislative body. The president has the veto power or the ability to pass into law, and the courts interpret the law. That's the check and balance system, the way it's set up to be ran. How often does that happen? I don't think any legislation moving through Congress today is ever checked by the courts until it's too late and somebody is harmed. And that's what we have to do, ladies and gentlemen, as the government of this country. We have got to put a stop to this crap that's going on in our legislative, executive, and judicial branches of government. Put our foot down and mean it. So when Mr. Trump said he was going to drain the swamp, I'm here to help him. And I hope you are too, because we need to point out the errors that we see daily. We need to get on that White House website and report these to the president and let him and his cabinet face reality. We're not putting up with it anymore. And if they don't want to do that, then hey, we can recall them. I think Ed's on the right track when he starts to recall these people who have no authority to even be in office. And so anyway, that being said, I think some good news was I haven't verified it yet, I heard that Mr. Obama has been arrested and as charged with treason. There was one other thing today that happened. What was it? I should have wrote it down. But it was a good thing too. Decision of Mr. Trump. So, and Ivana, his wife, the Democrats have got a petition going to throw her out of Trump Tower and force her to go into the White House because it's costing so much money to guard her. Well, let's see. If it's costing that much money to guard her, why are we guarding former presidents of the United States? I don't see anything in the Constitution that even gives Congress a right to put Secret Service on a former president.
That's a good point.
Or a senator or a secretary of state. How much money are we, the taxpayers, shelling out to protect crooks?
Very true.
So, with that, that, I will pass the floor to Michelle, because I know she has some very, very interesting stuff to tell you on these IRS forms. So, Michelle, it's all yours.
Okay. Well, I have to tell you, it's amazing. Dave, when he called me, I was going through my documentation as to looking up things regarding what I want to post regarding my criminal complaint, and lo and behold, just while I was looking up some information, Dave called me, as he was telling you, and I looked up the word liquidation. Now, please, this is amazing. I'm looking up the word liquidation, not thinking it was going to take me to the IRS information regarding liquidation. Now, the funny thing is when Dave called me, as he was telling you about the whistleblower forms that we filled out, which was the 211 form, and the other form that we filled out was in reference to us filing a identity theft claim as to the application, and that was the 140339 application. And then, of course, when Dave called me, I had to laugh because the number, the abbreviation that they were giving us under Section 7623B, well, we discovered that it didn't pertain to anything irrelevant. All that stood for was how they were going to pay us if we were to get a reward. So now I go and I tell Dave, I says, well, I'm gonna look at some of the information that I looked up earlier, and I said, and it's kind of funny because when you look up the information under liquidation, well, gives you all kinds of goodies. Now that letter B that they were throwing in there regarding their statement as to them telling us that, you know, we didn't do our paperwork right, and we didn't give them our tax name information. We didn't give them our taxpayer's address and telephone number. These were the things that they were claiming that we didn't provide to them in the information on the form. So Dave and I, we went back and looked up our forms. Well, lo and behold, we gave them all the information that they were claiming we didn't give them. But the funny thing was, is I said, well, before we call them and ask them all kinds of questions, let's look up a few things. So Dave says, okay, so he's looking up the guy's name and search bar, and I'm looking up other things in the search bar. And lo and behold, we come to this one page. What was that, Dave? It was it had to do with the manager's website.
Yeah, the chain of command.
Yeah, chain of command. And guess what it gave us? It gave us all the names. And we got to go back and try to retrieve that so we can print it out, because it gave us some. Yeah, we have to print it. You want to know why I want to print it, Dave? Guess what's on that? Guess what's on that documentation? Their names. And I love it when I get documentation that gives us their names, because now we have names we can use to attach to the forms or our information regarding the IRS. So that's why I want to go back and retrieve that. Now, I posted it on Ed's wall and David's wall, and of course it's on my wall, but if you just type in your search bar corporate liquidations, oh my goodness, are you going to be amazed. It tells you just about everything you want to know pertaining to how the payment works regarding the corporation, where you come in as you being an individual, and of course where they come in as them being a corporation. And guess what? It talks about the exchange or the stock exchange. And it is beautifully done up.
What we actually come across was the whistleblowers.
Dave, talk into the phone, please.
Okay, what we have the whistleblowers organizational chart. Now I'll show you the IRS really keep things up to date, because this was as of 10/1/2011. This is now 17. I wonder if any of these people have actually changed jobs and positions.
Well, you know what, Dave? That's a good question.
just another piece of paper, website that probably don't amount to anything because everybody's changed jobs. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in on the whistleblower. So.
Well, that is true.
Another thing, they could have put this guy's name down, and he don't even work there anymore, because that's another thing the IRS do is they like to put names down that you can't get a hold of this guy. Go ahead.
Ooh, that's a good. Well, you know what, Dave? When we call tomorrow, we're going to ask to speak to that gentleman and just to see what comes up out of that.
You bet. Because
now
here's pointed out to me earlier tonight when I was talking about this. He said this guy is a programmer. He doesn't have any authority. He programs the computers.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And you know what's so funny? That kind of brings me back to the liquidation thing, because what the liquidation pertains to is the corporation, and guess what it pertains to? Shareholders. Yeah, shareholders, pertaining to the money that they pay regarding the taxes, and it also has to do with you, how they steal your homes, because what does it come down to? What are lawyers and attorneys? They're an organization.
What was the name of the corporation, Michelle, that the IRS fall under? Do you remember?
What was that? What was the question again?
The name of the corporation the IRS fall under.
The Department of Treasury.
No. It was the corporation itself. Oh, shoot. I should have wrote it.
Was it something that we saw when we were looking at the documentation?
It was a 5-letter word. Shoot.
Oh, are you talking about the SPPA?
Nope. They fall under SPPA.
Yeah.
As the governing body.
Well, I have the Internal Revenue Service.
Yeah, but it's their parent company. Oh gosh. But anyway, the IRS actually fall under the IMF, who falls under this parent corporation.
The IRC?
No. Yeah, I'll have to look it up. We'll let you know next time if I can't. If I can't find it, we'll look it up.
Okay. I'm not sure. Yeah, because I'm not quite sure what you're trying.
I'll see if I can find it in my paperwork. I may have a list here.
Okay. Well, the funny thing is the letter B that they had attached to that section that we were trying to find. Well, it falls under statements, and it's actually section 951B. With respect to thereto, must include the statement on or with its return. So it has to do with a statement. And the funny thing is now when you go into this liquidation thing, I mean, oh my gosh, there's so much. We could spend probably 3 days on this just alone. But they talk about different subjects regarding your property and shareholders, which is also governing under the organizations as to, oh brother, you name it, it's there. Let me see. It has to do with liquidation of a corporation shall be treated as in full payment in exchange for a stock. Now, the reason why that grabs me by my seat of my britches, because what are they after is the money pertaining to your mortgages. That's why the banks pay off the mortgage, because they liquidate it. And they also liquidate it because what are they doing? They're putting you on the stock exchange, or they're making money off of it because it becomes a stock. So that's why they want to liquidate it real quick. Now the thing is these attorneys and these lawyers, they are shareholders in the stock exchange, and that's why they are part of the corporation, and that's why they're part of the the fraud regarding the banks. Because what do? They do transfers. And a transfer, in other words, they liquidate it, and then which is also followed by a transfer to another corporation. Does that ring a bell? What does the banks do? They do a transfer, and they claim what? Oh, a new lender, a new debt collector or servicer. So that's how they're doing it, and so they put they actually tell you like how much of a shareholder can make and how much they have to have, which is, believe it or not, quite a bit. And they, if you go to, when you look it up in your search bar, and if you go to number 2, where it talks about statements, it says, if required by paragraph D1 of this section, a significant holder must include on or with such holders return a statement entitled Statement Present to Section 1.331-1D by insert name and taxpayer identification number, if any, of taxpayer, a significant holder of the stock, of insert name and employer identification number, if any, if issuing a corporation. So in other words, this is like a website, and you go and you insert this information, the taxpayer's identification number and da-da-da-da-da, and boom, here you come. You insert your name or their name, the employer's identification number, boom, there you go. That's how they're doing it. That's how they're committing the fraud. So that, when I brought that up, well, I wasn't bringing up the IRS. I was just bringing up the liquidation. I was looking up laws pertaining to different meanings of words, and I wanted to look what would come up under liquidation.
Michelle?
So, go ahead, Dave.
Well, we have the IRS on Form 211 under their Privacy Act and Paperwork Reduction Act notice because this is fraudulently written. It says, you are not required to provide the information requested on a form that is subject to the Paperwork Reduction Act, but they don't tell you which one it is.
That's true.
3512. That's 44 U.S.C. 3512, Public Protection. The IRS Form 1040 does not have an OMB number on it, so they must tell you you're not required to fill out the form.
I agree.
So we have them for intentional fraud on their Privacy Act for not telling the people if it doesn't have a valid OMB number on the form, you're not required to fill it out.
And you know something, Dave? Also, that also falls into the Security Exchange, which is under Title 15 U.S.C. 7.8. And
right.
And it's also a violation under Title 26, because Title 26, that has to do with, in other words, they're not supposed to be asking you for personal information on you, and they're not supposed to be sharing it with other public identities or any other corporations without your consent. So yeah, many violations. You're right.
And you have the right not to testify against yourself. So if you're putting down numbers on a piece of paper, you're testifying against yourself.
Oh, that's a good point.
No.
Yeah, that's a good point, David. So that is how they're. And also under F, it says effective applicability date, and it says paragraph D. Now these are links you got to click on this stuff to go to that certain section to read on it. But that's in that paragraph. It talks about taxable year. In other words, the beginning year when you when you start to pay your taxes, or when they calculate your taxes. And anyway, they have on this liquidation website, they address the federal income tax return, including any amendment return filed on or before the due date, including extensions of such original return, timely filed on or after May 30th of 2006. And then they, for taxable years, you would click on the link. So they're just kind of giving you an idea, you know, and of course now that also is under 26 CFR Part 1 of the effective on April 1st. So I guess they say that the beginning year starts on April 1st of that year, which would be 2006.
And that was the year after I corrected them.
Isn't that amazing?
Isn't it?
Yeah, that really is amazing. And they say here, for an now this is just an example, they give you a little example. They say here, A, an individual who makes his income tax returns on the calendar year basis owns 20 shares of stock. Ooh, really? Hey, I don't know about you, David, but I think we're getting ripped off. 20 shares of stock.
I've never seen my shares of stock. Have any of you?
No. We're missing out. And it has a big P, and then it says corporation. A domestic corporation, 10 shares of which were required in 1951 at a cost of $1,500, and the remainder of 10 shares in December of 1954 at a cost of $2,900. Hey, I think we're missing out quite a bit here.
Yeah, because
he receives,
I was 10 years old.
Yeah, he receives in April of 1955 a distribution of $250 per share in complete liquidation, or $2,500 on the 10 shares occurred in 1951, and $2,500 on the 10 shares occurred in December of 1954. Hey, how come we're not getting any of this stuff? Then they go on to say to the gain of $1,000 on the shares required in 1951 is a long-term capital gain to be treated as provided in Part 1, 2, and 3, Section 1201 and following. Subchapter P, we'll have to look that up, Subchapter P, Chapter 1 of the Code. The loss of $400 on the shares occurred in 1954 is a short-term capital loss to be treated as provided in Part 1, 2, and 3, Section 1201 and following.
All right, now I got to break in again, Michelle. Excuse me, but under your 1040 individual income tax, there are no corporate laws in the 1040. So how can you take the short-term and long-term gains?
Well, I think you have to take you can't take both of them at the same time. You have to take one or the other.
Well, the thing of it is, Michelle, you're missing the point.
I think I am.
Tax form is incorrect for corporations. It's
either
an individual or it's a corporation.
Correct. But
be both.
Well, I agree. But here's my point. See, that's where the conversion comes into play. Because if they're addressing us as a corporation, hey, we're not receiving them.
In the author name or the corporation. But yet when it came down to the body of the letter, it was the individual.
Yeah, that was really weird. Yeah, just like David said, they're addressing us as a corporation, but yet when they address us on the paper by saying sir or ma'am, they address us as a natural person, because natural means we're not dead. Yeah, amazing, isn't it, David?
Then they think we're too stupid to catch this stuff.
So that's a conflict of interest right there.
Well, actually, it's identity theft.
Well, yeah, we actually could say that because they're addressing us as a corporation, but yet when they address us as to them talking to us, then they address us as a natural living soul.
That's right.
So which one are we? You know.
Now what I'm going to do is, since I've already filed my identity theft claim, I'm going to take a copy of this letter and I'm going to send it to the IRS. And point out the fact that, here is identity theft once again, and here's the proof of it.
We'll have to make sure we have to make sure we print out that document and we attach our exhibit to it.
Right, that's right.
Here's the exhibit.
So, I mean, everything the IRS does, they turn around and hang themselves. And
well, the funny thing is,
on to how they're doing it.
Oh, that is so true. And the funny thing is when I open up the you know, under the laws, and you read on the laws where it gives you, it's amazing. Everything that the law talks about has nothing to do. It only applies to them as to the corporation.
That's exactly right. Now you're back into 6331A, the authority of the secretary.
Well, and you know something, David, that's a good point, because here's the thing. Remember, the IRS is just like a database, for instance. I mean, that's how I use them. I use it as a database program, because really when it comes down right to it, the only person that really has the authority to do what they need to do regarding the money is the state treasury, or the treasury of the state. Bottom line. The treasury is the one who has the bottom say of what really is done with the money.
Well, if we don't have a U.S. treasury, and we haven't had since the Bankruptcy Act of 33, the only treasurer that we have is the state treasurer.
That's right. That's exactly right. And are you ready for this? I don't know if people are aware of this, but your Attorney General of all the 50 states, they are the regulators pertaining to that state. So in other words, your Attorney General, they monitor what comes in to the state pertaining to the money, the overflow money, as to the taxes, and in other words, what business is bringing in this, and da-da-da-da-da. That's all documented through the Attorney General's office. In other words, it's the state treasury and the Attorney General, they work hand on hand. They keep tabs of all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.